Now we go into a new topic, and now we start our KNX IoT part of the forum.
Okay.
We have a lot of attendees watching this. This is recorded, so people will be able to, our members will be able to watch this later on. So, Jos, thank you for joining. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Jos Bruins. I'm in this meeting representing the Thread Group. Let's say, without going into detail, because that will be in the presentation, I'm in standardization for a long time already, starting a professional career within Philips Electronics. And then later on, we started with a group of people, most of the people from Philips, our own organization, and we support several organizations in the space of standardization. So that can be in lighting standardization or in the HVAC space for companies. Amongst others, we work for Siemens. But we also work for a number of alliances in supporting them with business development or with marketing things, or with driving working groups and stuff like that. And in this case, I'm, as I said, representing Thread, the Thread Group.
Mm-hmm.
I have a general presentation which I would like to share with you.
Yes.
And this presentation is basically about what is Thread, why is it interesting, what are the specific aspects which make it interesting, but also who is driving it. That's also often determining part of the success. And a little bit about network topology and stuff like that.
Very good. I'm gonna now leave the floor to you. I just want to say Thread is a key pillar on the new extension of the KNX ecosystem with the KNX IoT, which is IPv6 based. It's a key pillar because it expands KNX into a wireless mesh network that we didn't have before, and is leveraging the Thread technology to have KNX IoT devices over this mesh network. The first certified devices are reaching the market, which are KNX over Thread, as a beautiful symbiosis. And yeah, you are now partnering with our Startup Incubator, so you are helping us to foster this incubator and these startups that bring excellent devices and technology, which is KNX over Thread. So thank you. You can now share your screen, and I will remove myself from the discussion.
Okay. Let me see how I do that.
At the bottom, you have a bar that there's like a monitor where you can share the opening menu. And then you can choose your screen.
So on the bottom, there's a little screen which
Yes.
I can click.
Yes.
And then I can. Okay, what does it say here?
You will need to choose the screen where you have your PowerPoint.
Technology business time. Let us see what's happening here. Are you seeing anything?
I think we are seeing another screen, the one that says sign in to join the event.
Okay.
Probably you're choosing a different screen.
Okay. Ooh, now I'm out.
Yeah. Try worst case scenario. I can run the presentation for you.
Okay. So you can open my screen as well, I hope.
I can, because you sent me the presentation. I can run the screen, the presentation for you. 1 second. All right, let me do this. Yeah, I'm gonna run the slideshow for you. Just one
Okay. Okay, good. That's a good workaround.
This is, as I always say, this is a live event, and
Yeah.
this is how it works. But this is the beauty of being live. So there's no tricks here. Okay, let me share my screen. Screen 2. There we go. So you just tell me when you want to go to the next slide. Just say it.
Yes, I will tell you next slide. Okay. So you probably see now the slide with the nice woman touching the control unit on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So so as I said, I'm going to show you a number of slides on Thread. I will not discuss all slides in detail because basically time does not permit us to do that. But I thought that people can also download this or later on check out the presentation, and then they have a little bit more detail and context. So I think that is useful to have. So, as I said, a number of slides are basically for your reference. My objective is to introduce Thread to the KNX community, but also find out, how can we serve and best support, let's say, the KNX community from Thread point of view. And if you talk about KNX IoT, and if you talk about wireless and support, transfer of know-how, or whatever we can do to help you make this KNX IoT successful, that is where I'm interested in. Therefore, we have also this collaboration with KNX IoT, and we hope to work fruitfully together. And a lot of the operational activity is going between Jesus and myself. So, if you go to the next slide. It says Thread positioning. So I think it's good to elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe we should go to the next slide thereafter, which says IoT strategy and Thread IoT positioning. So when we were talking about and talking with a lot of companies who talk about IoT strategy and internet-centric strategy, of course, people talk about Ethernet, what they have, and Wi-Fi. Ethernet and Wi-Fi are used a lot, and they have a very logical position in the IoT strategy, and also they are there to stay. That will not change. But if you look to, let's say, more use cases for the future, especially in Internet of Things and sensor networks and stuff like that, you see that a number of requirements are eminent, and that a proposition of like Thread is very good to address that. So we're talking about requirements like low bandwidth or suitable for battery and self-powered devices. We're talking about location flexibility aspects of installations, or if you have goals to do no new wires things, and if it is important to in the future involve mobile network products, or last point related to mesh and mesh quality and the range, which starts to improve if you have more products in your network with the mesh functionality on board. Those kind of aspects are also very important. And for that, to address those type of requirements, Ethernet or Wi-Fi are not always ideal. And therefore, this is sometimes I call this a super trio, a good trio of technologies which are very synergetic and will probably become a very important part of IoT networking. strategy. So if you go to the next slide, you basically see the same slide on the left side. And if people ask us, what is Thread? Let's say in a few words, it's wireless IP-based, low-power mesh networking standards designed for cybersecurity compliance for buildings and for homes. Cybersecurity compliance is extremely important for both buildings and homes. You probably see a lot of products already popping up for the home space, but we are working within Thread also to address more and more building relevant requirements and make that part of the specification. So that's Thread in a few words: wireless, low power, mesh, cybersecurity for buildings and for homes. If you go to the next slide, and we can go again one slide further. We are from the Thread Group. Thread Group started in 2014, so it's a group already for a long time in the field. It's a very market-driven organization. It is focusing on, let's say, addressing the benefits of this low-power wireless functionalities and get that materialized in Thread. Focusing on educating the market, but also motivating companies to adopt. It's a non-profit organization, and together with all the members, we try to get this functionality to life and successful at large in the market worldwide as a worldwide standard. If you go to the next slide, you see a number of board people. I show this slide because in all the years when we were in standardization, we concluded that success of a standard is not only created by let's say the superiority of the standard itself, but also by the people who manage it, who drive it, and who try to motivate the world to adopt it, but also who adopt it themselves. So the chairman of the group is Vivid Siddha from Apple. We have Sujata from NXP Semiconductors as the vice president of marketing. We have a VP of technology from Google, Jonathan Huey, and then we have a number of other key companies who are also major implementers, like Siemens. But also Kevin Krause from Fortune Brands. Some of you might know him from Assa Abloy or from Yale. We have Arnulf Roep from Inventronics, former Osram company. And we have a number of other companies on board, like Amazon, like Qualcomm, like Scilabs, Somfy. A lot of interesting players who are not only, let's say, designing the stuff, but also committing to implementation. And that helps us tremendously. And we're talking about IoT, and we're talking about IP. And if you want to be serious in this field, and if you want to really have impact, you need, of course, to have also the key players in the world on board and driving this. And that's happening with Google and Apple and Amazon and those kind of American big tech companies. So that's a great, let's say, and solid support team and management team in the background of the organization, and they make it running well. If you go to the next slide, you see that we have a number of liaison partners. Dali, KNX is a liaison partner, BACnet, CSA, IP Bliss. Some of you might not know IP Bliss. That's a organization whereby a number of alliances are talking together about the migration gradually over time to IP and how we can facilitate that in the best way. And ASHB is the former KABA organization. Most of you know the KABA organization. So those are the parties where we try to collaborate with, because a networking standard on itself is interesting, but collaborating with the application layer and with the true and valuable functionality, that's very important. If you go to the next slide, talking about Thread benefits, what Thread delivers, I think I covered that already for a big part. So Thread is as you see on the right side, a combination of a number of IETF functionalities, what you see in orange, and also security functionality and commissioning functionality. IPv6, it runs on 15.4 silicon, it is meanwhile, we are already for a long time on the market, a pretty stable proposition. If you go to the next slide, which says example of Thread with Matter DIY home devices, it could be that you recognize this as something which regularly pops up in the world, and that is basically because Matter is also a user of the Thread technology. This is a configuration or a network topology whereby you basically see end-to-end IP network, and a lot of different products involved. And on the bottom side, you see also in this topology the part which is running on Thread. You can have, of course, a mixed network of Thread, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and with that combine a number of interesting devices. Then on the left side, you see also that there is a bridging product, of course, to see or to ensure we have backwards compatibility to, for example, a Zigbee network. But those can also be other networks. So that's a topology which you see. What we of course also like to push in Thread is Pro Home and Building, Pro Home and Building is in study also within within Matter. A number of companies are working on that. That is an initiative that will take a number of years, I think, before that will be really successful. But anyhow, also within Matter, based on Thread, we look at this Pro Home and Building space. If you go to the next slide, which says Smart Building with multiple automation standards, basically similar topology, whereby you also see that within that network, you can have DALI over Thread, or you can have KNX over KNX IoT over Thread. And let's say our vision is that we will have these mixed networks based on IP, interoperating with each other. I will not go into detail about what types of Thread devices we have and what roles certain products have, but in this network topology, so the next slide, roles and scalability, you see that we have border routers, we have Thread network leaders, extenders, and end devices. And in some cases, of course, this can be combined as well. And the border router brings cellular, Ethernet, Wi-Fi together with Thread and is managing the communication over IP. This you will find also in the technical papers with much more detail and explanation of the roles and how it works and stuff like that. If you go to the next slide, that's basically a slide what I kind of covered already. So it shows on the bottom part, let's say, the networking layer with Thread, but also cellular, broadband, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, so some other networking technologies. And on top, we see the different application layers, the different technology initiatives. And basically, what we say is Thread enables convergence, but also coexistence on IP, and that's what we try to facilitate. So Thread is a independent networking technology, and it is not tied to either CSA or Matter or let's say DALI or KNX. It's a universal networking solution. Let me see, where are we time-wise? I think we are getting already a little bit under pressure. So
we have 7-8 minutes.
Yeah, correct. So basically, the next slide, which says thread in homes, elaborates a little bit on let's say some other rationale for the home.
Sorry, the slide is thread is convergence.
Thread.
There we go.
Yeah, so thread in homes slide elaborates a little bit with text on the value of thread in homes. I think people can read that themselves. And if you go to the next slide, you see also a similar slide with text on the thread in buildings. So basically, with thread in buildings, we say we foresee an IP backbone. We see an enterprise networking solution in the future, which is based on IP. And on this IP, in this IP, you can have different applications and different networking solutions, all in a very secure setting. If you go to the next slide, talking about thread capabilities, you see that the next slide says thread is mature technology. And it says thread 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. That's the slides where I would like to elaborate on a little bit. So I don't want to elaborate on all the different functionalities which we introduced in thread 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3. Basically, at this moment, as we speak, thread 1.4 is introduced. Thread 1.4, at least what I hear from the market back, is that that makes the proposition pretty complete and pretty fit for purpose. At the same time, people also did some fixing of earlier functionalities. But the most important thing is in the let's say the more professional domain, I heard from people, we like this thread thing, but we never as a company dive into a 1.1 or a 1.2 specification. That's too risky for us. Because we would like it to be mature and let's say failure proof and stuff like that. No funny bugs in it anymore, and therefore we need a complete and stable proposition. I think meanwhile we are there. So with thread 1.4 introduction, we are talking about a pretty complete, stable and robust and rich functionality to serve on the networking layer. Okay, if you go to the next slide, it says thread 1.4 spec block. I will not go into the details of the text. This is basically 2 slides for your reference. And it explains a little bit more, about the last pieces of functionality which came in the 1.4 spec, and it elaborates on that. If you want to have more detailed information, you can check that on the website as well. But these 2 pages, because the next slide also says thread 1.4 spec block part 2. This elaborates a little bit on the high level things which were addressed in the 1.4 spec. If you go to the next slides, you basically see something what I kind of addressed already. So on the bottom part, you see that we have in this vision slide, we have thread, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, but also DOCSIS, DSL, cellular. That is what we see, and we see that this can communicate on the bottom layer between the different technologies, but also on the application layer. We see a mix of different application technologies, and that's in fact the vision which we have to make happen. If you go to the next slide, that's very similar, so I will not go to that. So the vision, application layer, diversity is kind of similar to what I said before. And then thread certification. So in the slide certification, you see that there are many authorized test labs, and that is all up and running, and that goes smooth. So no additional information on that. And then the next slide says why Siemens collaborates with Thread. I thought that is an interesting blog, which was just released, I think, a week ago, and therefore is relevant. I think you see it floating around on the internet and on LinkedIn and stuff like that. It elaborates a little bit why a company like Siemens partners with Google, Apple, and Amazon. And what the thinking behind this is. So I think it's good rationale, also supporting, let's say, the philosophy of why do you go with Thread, besides Ethernet and besides Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So also in the next slide, you see part 2 of that, why Siemens collaborates. And then in the next slides, which says Thread certified products, you see an overview of a number of real-life products in the market, and also companies active in this space. And you see already a lot of interesting IoT things. And basically, the next slide is the last slide, which says closing remarks. And so my closing remarks are, Thread as an organization is growing. If you look over the last 4 years, it's the fastest growing alliance compared to CSA or Zigbee or even KNX or BACnet or others. We have this liaison with the incubator program, so I hope that in the coming months we will come closer together and see how we can, from Thread side, help you guys to do interesting things and valuable things with Thread. You see it coming in mobile products. So besides mobile phones like iPhone or Google 9 or whatever, you see it in iPads coming, and it supports iOS. You see that the global, let's say, the really important companies are introducing their products with Thread in a more in a very interesting way, and they are growing their business lines with Thread on board. And I think the Siemens article is also good to just check one more time and think about the rationale of why to do Thread. So last slides, closing slides. If you are interested, if you have more questions, contact me. I'm a contact point for the European market. I'm also in close contact with Jesus. Let's see where we can take it from here and how we can make this a successful collaboration.
Thank you, Jos. Just on time. We have now a break, but I want to say thank you for contributing with this information about this technology. As I said, it's a key pillar for our extension of the ecosystem. Actually, in the next sessions that we have today, we have a presentation from A-Touch, which is a KNX member that has developed a KNX IoT device over Thread. So it's a very nice and successful story there, that how they have achieved this in cooperation with Cascoda, which is a system component provider based on Thread as well. And also we have another presentation about the first KNX IoT installation with KNX IoT devices, which is also using Thread as a mesh network. So I think it's a great partner, it's a great cooperation. KNX remains with its core values of interoperability at application level and the independent vendor-independent tool software ETS, while we leverage an IPv6-based mesh network for the wireless communication. So this only opens incredible business opportunities, as we can see in the next presentations. Jos, thanks a lot for contributing to this technology forum. It was a pleasure having you here. And we'll see each other soon maybe in a Thread Group members meeting or in a show, or who knows.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for your support and have a good meeting.